well, really the only thing they had to do was put a name in a spreadsheet. Like, well, now I only have one thing to check at the end of the day. And now I know the patients are getting the experience and the consistency that I envisioned.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Trust Driven Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Josh Satterlee, and I'm joined today by a fellow chiropractor, Andy Van Hoewyk. Andy, welcome back. We've talked many times.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Andy, you are, for those listeners, you are a chiropractor. You deliver care every day. Interestingly, also, you like to build stuff in the background, especially stuff that makes your practice run a little bit easier, better, smoother, etc. Can you give us an idea like what a normal day is like for you, and then we'll kind of dive into like your process improvements?
All right, yeah. So I mean, I think I'm probably similar to a lot of the chiropractors that, listen to your show, and kind of we all operate in the same kind of space where we want to be like a sports chiropractor with, dabble a little bit into rehab. Now, we do exercise in my practice. However, it's certainly not my skill set. When I came out, I joined a practice where it was like, 3-4 minutes with a patient, just move, fast, like the type of practice that I certainly wouldn't love to be in now. But it taught me, two important things. One, how to work with patients because I got to see a lot of them. And then secondly, what I didn't want my practice to look like. Right. So when I got into my own
Sometimes those are
practice,
the best lessons.
yeah, the good lessons. And definitely good to learn that early on. Yeah. So we dabble in mostly manual care, right? But we add in and layer in, newer technologies like shockwave and laser, and then absolutely, exercise is a part of our practice. Yeah.
Awesome. And for the non-chiros listening, sometimes we get mental health and an acupuncturist listening. When you say manual care, let's take it back. You're doing the chiropractic adjustment as it's known, putting your hands on, doing soft tissue. Do you do dry needling or anything like that?
Yeah, so I dabble in dry needling. I really, really liked it when I first kind of started doing it. As I explored newer things like shockwave, I don't do it as much,
Okay.
but I would definitely describe myself as like I'm a chiropractor that while exercise is a part of the practice, like I am a hands-on doc. I would say like 99.99% of my patients get adjusted. With like a little soft tissue either before or after,
Yeah.
maybe some Grafton, but not a lot just because takes up so much time.
Yeah. And how long are new patient appointments and how long are normal follow-ups usually?
Oh my God. You know what? A couple of months ago, they were a good solid 30 minutes for new patients. Believe it or not, I went old school. All of my patients were begging for e-stim, and I said no for like 6 years. And then I just said, fine, like screw it, I'll give you e-stim. They love it. Fine. So that added, 10 minutes to a new patient visit. So then it went to, 45 minutes. And then when we added shockwave, that's in another 15 minutes. So my new patients have ballooned from like a 30-minute to now it's closer to an hour, which is like kind of tough. But luckily I have staff. And then follow-ups are, with me 10 minutes, but total time in the office, 20, 30.
Okay. So you've maximized it for, so number one, on that new patient visit, want to compare apples to apples.
Yeah.
Some people don't treat on the first visit. So you're doing about
Okay.
a 30-minute exam and about 30 minutes of treatment, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, probably. Yep.
Yeah. And then you said you spend about 10 minutes with a patient and your team spends another 10 to 20.
10 to 20, depending if it's just rehab or if it's also rehab shockwave. Yeah.
Right on.
Or laser.
Cool. Yeah. I want to give everybody kind of context for
Yeah.
how many people you're seeing and how much time. So you and I have talked about this, but I would love to get into this. When I said you love to build, during COVID, you got kind of bored. Your brain was working overtime, and you were also relatively new in practice, right?
I had been I was working on my second practice at the time. So my first one was a very arrogant 28-year-old buying the practice that I was at, which was a catastrophic mistake. But as we were saying earlier, like, sometimes those are where like the lessons, the best lessons come from. So I wouldn't change it now because of everything that I learned. But I was a very arrogant 28-year-old. I'm in this practice where I'm like, I kind of hate everything about how care is delivered here, but I've started to put down roots. The best option is let's buy the practice and then let's change everything about it.
Right.
Yeah.
All those customers that are expecting a Ford dealership, we're going to let them know that Toyotas are actually better cars. They just don't.
Yeah. So that was a whoopsie daisy. But the good news is like as that's kind of going through that process, I'm like, wow, like I'm really trying to fit like a square peg into a round hole here. So in the summer of 2019, close that practice, move on, open up the practice that I was thinking about and kind of dreaming about. Like this is how I want to practice.
Okay.
So then I was able to hit the ground running in middle of 2019. We started to see some really great progress, and then COVID hit, and yeah, lost. We slowed down about like 50% of our volume. So I was a little bored and want to do something with my time. That's useful.
Well, it was also you're probably about a year into practice. You're starting to hit some delivery problems, right? You have enough clients that you're starting to see the issues come up and the forms filled out and this needs to be done and all this.
Oh yeah.
Like, what were some of those issues you saw coming up that kind of
definitely like big ones was like intake paperwork, and then we had turnover in our front desk, so we kept running into issues of like, my God, I'm like teaching all of these systems over and over again, and they're all different systems, right? Like MailChimp over here, EHR over here. Yeah, Jane was my EHR at that time. Yeah, I just moved to Jane, so it was just a little bit of like softwares all over the place. And I'm not an idea guy. Like I do not, and I understand that like there's no real like new ideas anymore anyways, but I don't sit around and have genius ideas. What I do is I listen to podcasts like yours and Kevin's and a bunch of others, and I like hear everyone else's ideas and go like, holy shit, that's awesome. And so I start stealing bits and pieces of ideas from everyone and just like smashing it all together.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah. And luckily at that time you had time to do that, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you think back? Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I was going to say, it just started with like, well, how do I just put two of my softwares together? And I don't know if it was you or someone that introduced me to Zapier. But someone introduced me to Zapier, and I feel like it was you. And that was just like the first start of like, well, just make these two things talk. And once you,
what were those first two things that you were trying to do? Do you remember?
It was, if I had to guess, it was probably my new patient log and like MailChimp.
Okay.
If I had to guess. And then once I realized I could do that, then like, I don't know, I kind of had this like weird epiphany of like, what if everything talked? It turns out I was using DocuSign wrong. But right before I got Jane, I had PayDC as my EHR, which at the time didn't have like online booking. It didn't have intake paperwork.
Okay.
So I subscribed to like 8 different things. I had MailChimp, I had Zapier, like which did all the connecting, but with DocuSign, Calendly, like all of these other things. And then that was when you had like the Clinic Gym Connect, you the first, like when the texting software came out. So then I would have a patient sign up on Calendly, which would zap their information to the new patient log, and then take the information from the new patient log and send it to everything else.
That new patient log, was that just like a Google Sheet or what was it?
Just a Google Sheet, yeah. Google Sheet. Yeah.
New patient log sounds really fancy, but this was just a spreadsheet.
No. It's just a spreadsheet. I think in the CSA there is like a fancy, or not even a fancy, it's just a new patient log like that's built into the dashboard. But I still use a spreadsheet because I still zap things around from there.
Yeah, and that's the rule with Zapier is if you can get it into Google Sheets, you can. Early on, that was like the universal key. Like if you can get there, you can get it anywhere.
Yeah. Oh, and then I eventually layered on the Trello. That's right. So Trello, I used. This one was a weird one. I figured out a way to use Trello columns as a part of my patient journey, which is what
I remember talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
It's what you were able to do with like how trust-driven care works now, where there were a bunch of columns, like moving from, they just heard about us to they've scheduled to after their first visit. And then I would just drag the patient from one column to the next, and it would kickstart all of my texting and all of my emails.
That is awesome because when you can simply visualize it, I think training people to do it becomes so easy.
Yeah, exactly. It was about the simplicity of like, my front desk can do this.
Let's back up a little bit though.
Yeah.
Back to that first new patient log, MailChimp to send an email. When you were able to do that first step, and I want to kind of talk about automating an office. You know, the end result is you have way less things cluttering your mind, right? When these automations are running well, and you know, hey, as soon as I move this person from here to here, I know they're going to get the email. I know they're going to get
Yeah.
this. I know they'll get the DocuSign. I know they'll get this. It is so rewarding and relaxing. And I think you become much more present.
Imagine a practice where patient engagement is seamless and unified. With trust-driven care, connect with patients across text, email, social media, and Google Business Chat, all on autopilot. Empower your team to step in effortlessly and engage in real time from anywhere. Say goodbye to multiple software and hello to a simplified practice and life. Trust-driven care is the all-in-one solution to save time, boost revenue, and build patient loyalty. Book your demo today and watch your schedule start to fill up. Now, back to the show.
But let's go back. So there you were in COVID. You have a clinic that's grown a lot in the last year. You see this 50% drop off. So you have the pressure of less revenue, but you also have this pressure of, we got a lot of stuff piling up, like you said, new patient intake, et cetera, et cetera. When you first made that breakthrough of getting some of that automated, do you remember how you felt, or like what happened then? Because
It was
led to a lot
definitely like,
more.
especially for my personality, because I'm a little bit of a control freak. So, and I have like high expectations, I guess. So like when I want things done, I want them done well. And so if you're leaving 20,000 different tasks to a staff member, and there's so many different things that have to get done, like in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh my God, like I have to check off that they did all 20,000. Right. So that's super stressful for me. You're writing your staff. You don't want that. So to know that, like, well, really the only thing they had to do was put a name in a spreadsheet. Like, well, now I only have one thing to check at the end of the day. Right. And now I know, like, the patients are getting the experience that and the consistency that, like, I envisioned. Right. I guess me is, I don't know where this came from, but in my head, I try and grow my practice through the experience.
Love it.
If that makes sense. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. So for me, it's all about, delivering a crazy good experience and
It's all we have,
consistency
like-
over and over. Yeah. Yeah.
Because like if people are price shopping you,
Right.
they're going to price shop until there's a reason not to. And most of the time there's not a reason not to. It's just like, hey, do you take my insurance? Yes or no? And that's a placeholder, but nobody is going to Disney and walk into the ticket counter and being like, well, Matt, Six Flags said they do it for 85. I don't know why you're charging me 215, like that just doesn't happen. And I think in healthcare, the experience is the only thing you can do. It's all it is.
And I think, like, again, I'm listening to podcasts, listening to other people's ideas, and I think it was your podcast. You had one on the Disney experience. And it was around that time, and you talked about the fact that they're all wearing badges, and like it's immaculately clean, like just like what the Disney experience is going to be, and it's going to be better than everyone else's. Right. Or you may have had the story of like the Ritz. I can't remember, but you're just awesome at storytelling, so like it's easy to remember all these little things.
Yeah.
So, and thank God, I mean, those podcasts you probably put out were like years ago, but it kind of stuck with me in terms of like, well, that's what I want to create.
Along with that, so it sounds like you're creating an amazing experience. What percent of that experience, because there's stuff you have to do physically in person.
Yeah.
There's stuff that you have to do before they come in, after they come in. What percent of that is basically electronic communication? So the text message at the right time, the email at the right time, et cetera.
A good portion of it. Like one, I mean, I guess I couldn't tell you exactly what, but if you're just talking about purely before the appointment, the only thing we have to do is have a phone call when they come in, right? So other than gathering, and they don't even have to have that. If they schedule online, we're able to do everything automatically from the EHR. We stole your ideas borrowed early on in terms of like, here are the type of text messages that you want to send before they arrive. So it's a picture of the front of the office. Here, how to find us. Here's a map. Here's a link to the, for the directions to our office. So I remember you kind of did that video a couple of years ago, and it was around that same time that I was building it all. So I made sure that that's what I built. And then when they come in, all we have to do is, slide them now in trust-driven care, and it sends all of their onboarding text for the next 2 months.
The reason I ask like what percent is, there are certain things that every place does for experience. Like if you can get your employee to make eye contact with them and
Yeah,
say, "Hi, Andy, it's good to see you." That's training people, which is the least reliable but largest impact things that happen, right?
for sure.
Those,
Yeah. I mean, digital is great and all, but the biggest impact, you're right, is in person.
yeah. But the flip side is digital almost can be 100% automated, right? If you just
Yeah.
have the right timing or the right trigger, you can say, "Hey, when
Yeah.
a day before everybody's first visit, send them this picture or send them this thing." So it's a balance of doing those things. I just see so many practices where they're like relying fully on manual stuff, right? And that way, the problem with that is it works. When it works, it's awesome. But when somebody's a little bit off or somebody's sick at home or you're short on staff, it completely falls apart. Like you got nothing. And it breaks my heart because then those patients don't have as good of an experience for you.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that would, you're right. I guess the reason why I build all the automations and the campaigns is because that's the kind of stuff that raises my blood pressure.
Yeah. You start
Like,
smiling for those listening.
Yeah, like it's immediately like, oh my God, like that's the kind of stuff that's my worst nightmare. Is just in terms of like the consistency of the delivery. Like I'm still growing my practice, I'm still young, I'm still growing. Like every new patient matters still to me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and I'm not saying that, if you're 60 years old and you have this massive practice that every new patient doesn't matter, but it still is, the point of like, I need to make sure that we hit a home run on every single new patient.
What are the things what are some points you hit on that new patient to make sure that everybody has that consistent experience?
Yeah, besides the automations that we're kind of just describing, it is the things like the smiling, it's the tour. I am like OCD with the cleanliness of my office. I'm big on like, the whole like, check the bathroom to see what the bathroom looks like.
Yeah.
Yeah, like if in my mind, and maybe I'm just assuming it's the kind of person I am, that if I go into a dirty office, like then they're not professional. You're probably, yeah, I don't know, just assuming that like they're gonna be less than the best doctor around. Right.
Right. It's one of those things. They might be the smartest, best trained person in the world, but if it's cluttered and dirty and
Yeah.
there's no way that it improves, like
Right. And also like, and not that we charge the Ritz prices, but if you want to charge Ritz prices, you better look like the Ritz.
right. Yeah. And cleanliness is, you can have lesser quality equipment, but as long as it's clean and maintained, it for sure. Sometimes people don't even care. Like nobody's going to ask you what brand of shockwave you have, but is there dust on top of it? They're going to notice.
Well, I'm in Burlington, North Carolina, so most people are like, "What's shockwave?" So
Live in Las Vegas, I
little-
think people ask that.
yeah, no, okay. Like I live in this Burlington. Alliance is this weird little time bubble where everything feels about like 10 years behind the times. So,
Or you go there and you see fashion and you're like, "Oh, is that retro?" And they're like, "No, it's current.
yeah,
We haven't brought it back. We
Yeah.
just never stopped doing it."
Yeah. I guess because I'm in healthcare, like it really seems the most apparent to me in healthcare, but I'm sure there's like other ways. And it's funny because when you talk to people, this area is booming. It's really, really growing. But everyone who is moving here from outside is like also kind of like, wow, this place is like interesting. It's a little Pleasantville-y.
Nice. So with that, were there challenges of your patient? So like sometimes those Pleasantvilles are like, they're old buildings and parking sucks, or it's hard to find, or you're on the second floor of a building used to be the bank, that kind of, oh, go to the old Woolworths and go upstairs.
So some of the other chiropractors in the area, I feel like have that kind of a problem. Like we're really lucky. We have an awesome like building space in a nice professional center with, dentists, orthopedists, podiatrists. It feels like 4 or 5 different dentists are in here. So we're really lucky in terms of that. With like, yeah. So again, like presentation is big for me. So it's in a really nice space, really nice inside. But there are some other practices that like I remember like literally like he's the best. He was the best chiropractor in town. He was awesome. Such an amazing human being, huge practice. But you would go in there and it's all like, because he was a huge Western fan. So it was like
Okay.
it was like a hardcore like wood paneling kind of like John Wayne like sort of like a motif kind of a place. And I was like, all right, rock on, I guess. Like I'd probably paint a couple walls, but like you do you. But like I mean, the guy was the most amazing guy in the world and everyone loves him.
Well, that authenticity and genuineness those are the parts that can't be automated, right?
For
Those
sure. Yeah.
can't be faked.
Yeah.
But it goes back, like people want to connect with a person regardless of what they're into. I mean, they could be the biggest
Yep.
Disney fan or Western fan, or they could be the number one, Tennessee Titans fan. It just, all they want to do is just connect with somebody. But it goes back to why to automate, I think, is if we can get 50% of that workload off your brain.
Yeah.
And you can be present, listening to that person and connect with the human being in front of you. That's one of the parts that's so impressive about all these companies that have great experiences. Go back to Disney. It's that when you ask the random employee, hey, how do I get to Tomorrowland? They don't keep walking and yell it over their shoulder, right? They stop, they face you, they go, oh, well, go down here to to that bridge and turn right, cross over, you'll be right there. Like they have the few seconds to just treat you as a human in a conversation,
Yep.
rather being rushed. I don't know about you, but I've had the experience in medicine where they're either thinking about the last visit or thinking about the next visit.
Yeah.
And that stuff happens, especially when you're a business owner, right? I mean, I'm sure you feel those pressures too, but that detracts from the experience.
It does. I think I heard it from Mark King first. He said you automate what you can automate so that, when it's something that has to be done by a person, you can give it 110% and you can like kind of really wow them with the things the more personal things, right? Like if you can take the phones away from the front desk or automate the phones, well, then that front desk person is 100% committed to the person who is like right in front of them and making sure that they're getting a water, getting an espresso, like a snack, and just creating that ridiculous wow experience instead of like I'm on the phone and I hold up a finger just saying like, wait 1 moment or something like that.
Yeah. Or I don't see it that much anymore, but I remember this one office I went to as a kid. They had the frosted glass window, and when one was ready for it, she would open it and be like, Satterlee. And then like you would be like, okay, what do you want me to do? She's like, just fill out the forms and come back. And then she'd slide it shut.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is so.
Oh yeah. No, that's still hardcore. Like every doctor office I've been to in this town in the last 10 years, they're still doing that.
Yeah. And it just detracts from it. So
yeah.
But going back to your automations, what are some of the ones you're the most proud of? What are some things you're like, man, I can't believe everybody doesn't do this?
Probably that first one was one of the most ones that I'm probably kind of like the most proud of, just in terms of hooking up all of those systems. I would say here recently, so that one, and then creating campaigns that drip for new patients. Like,
okay,
basically you have to put in a lot of like work up front in terms of I created about like 2 months worth of videos just in terms of that walk a patient through like the entire process, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 of like care, just whatever your care looks like, right? In terms of, here's pain, here's strengthening, and here's our discharge process. But knowing, when and where most patients are going through those phases and being able to deliver videos to them about what they're experiencing right now in the care in the office and what they're going to experience the next time and what's right over the horizon for them. So I was pretty proud of that one. Here recently, I'm still like building my practice with like, grassroots marketing in terms of like going to 5Ks and events, lifting competitions, wherever I can get out into the community. We have a partnership with like the local YMCA, so I'm at the YMCA, every single month, just to do like some free TLC on people. Like recently we've really been bringing like our shockwave and doing shockwave on people. Or my volunteer, like how I look at volunteering is like everyone I know is a teacher. My wife is a teacher, like my entire extended family is all teachers. And North Carolina is a little iffy on how they support teachers, especially in my area. A little iffy. So what I do is I do like teacher mini clinic days. And so I kind of go into a lot of the local elementary schools. Last week we did a high school on a teacher work day. I set up for like 2 or 3 hours. Me and my preceptor just went and we just go for 2 or 3 hours and we just work on teachers, the entire time. But I've always been horrible at that in terms of like, how do you follow up? Like, how do you like potentially like that person who like really had a shoulder problem, like kept saying like, I really need to come in. Like, I'm like, cool, call me. Like, so like, I'm not the best at like, let's put something on the books right now. Someone in our mastermind group, they posted a picture and I was like, oh my God, that's genius. Where it's a QR code, a picture of a QR code, a little sign that says like, sign up for free treatment. So the QR code goes to a Google Doc. Or no, what's the one where you like filled out? Google form. Thank you.
Sure.
Google form. That information goes to a Google Sheet. And now I have the Google Sheet get sent into Trust Driven Care to deliver information to them. Right. So, and then again, that's all automated. So 24 hours later, it's like, hey, I'm Dr. Andy. Like, I'm the chiropractor that you met yesterday. Like, did you have any questions from what we were talking about? Like any soreness, anything like that? And so that gets a ton of just responses, right?
Yeah.
They're like, oh, no, I feel great. Like, thank you very much for coming out. And I'll just, send me or the front desk. I don't have to respond to that. My front desk can see it and respond to it, right? And then like 2 days later after that, we're like, would you like some videos that, that we commonly like prescribe to our patients in the office? And, a good half of them are again like, oh, absolutely. Yeah, send me some videos. So that's the most recent one that I just built a couple of weeks ago.
I think my friend...
Proud of that one.
Yeah, my friend who's a mentor said, like, you're planting an orchard, and like sometimes your seeds won't be trees for a year.
Yep.
But if you plant a few seeds together, like that person sees you at at the teacher event, then they happen to run a 5K and then they see you somewhere else, you start in your mind. And then at some point there's fruit growing on that tree. And he always says, just because that orange isn't ripe today doesn't mean like in 2 weeks when they need you, they'll do it. And I think in community-based marketing, that cannot be overstated.
You can't be too pushy. Or at least I suck in sales, like that type of thing. So again, like if we're talking about like what do you do in the office for sales, it's like, well, I don't. It's just that my entire system is designed to do the sale for me, right? Like so, and then in public, like if I'm at a community event, like again, like I suck at sales, so I'm gonna make sure that we create automations and things like that that can position me instead of sell, because like I'm just not good at that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All you got to do in that situation to sell is say, I'm going to send you a video tomorrow. Look out for it, and they'll be like, oh, you will? And then when you actually follow through, they're like, wow, that guy really is great. Yeah.
He's so nice. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, Andy, this is great. Last question I just want to ask is, when you've done such a great job since COVID of really like systematizing a lot of things and putting together really, I think you're a perfect picture of automate as much as you can, but you never let it reduce the patient experience. Like I get my blood work done at Quest Diagnostics. Now it's only a kiosk in the waiting room. There's not a person. You can't even connect with a person. And there's a locked door between the waiting room and where they take your blood. That's
what LabCorp does near my office.
Yeah. And it's like, I'm like, oh, this is automating and reducing the patient experience. Is a horrible experience, and you've never done that. You've always balanced those two very well. But one of the things, the biggest costs in any healthcare clinic and our, chiropractic offices and again, counseling centers, mental health, acupuncture, physical therapy, it's always people. It's people, people. If you were to think to a place where you didn't have all these systems automated, how many more employees do you think you'd need to run this? Because I look at all these automations you have an employee there, like a computer-based employee. That's an amazing one, right? It's delivering all these videos at exactly the right time and on the right video, the right visit. What do you think it would take?
Probably 2. So probably, in this area, that means it's $80,000, maybe like $40,000 a piece for salary. 1 for the marketing. Okay. And then 2nd, because I use a lot of automations for like my business like analytics and things like that, looking at numbers and stuff like that. Okay. So either, 1 person for marketing and like probably 1 person for like business admin.
Yeah. I think that's another way to look at it, is the cost savings, again, without a reduction in the service is great, because you're never going to double your profit in a chiropractic practice by buying the off-brand cleaning supplies, right? Like it's just not, there's like very few places to reduce, what you spend other than people. So it's
so that's so good. Like I'm trying to remember, I literally just heard someone mention, I don't know, again, I'm stealing this from someone else. It was a podcast episode. Maybe it was Kevin. He said or he was interviewing or read somewhere that like you don't make money typically by cutting costs anyways. Like, sure, you could cut some cost. Yeah, right. If you cut an employee, sure, there's $40,000, right? But every single time that I've had to downsize temporarily due to having to fire someone or something gone wrong that needs to get fixed, anytime that I've temporarily lost an employee, my income crashes. So, like, you need those people, right? So you can't operate without them. But you're right. Like, you're not gonna save more than like a couple of bucks, if you're buying in bulk pens or not, or like, for my office, again, it's about experience. So if like I can save money on one end, like, I'm gonna buy some like Maison Perrier for my front desk, or for my patient experience out front instead of like generic bottles of water. We got bubblies, we have espresso, not a Keurig, just to upgrade things like that.
That balance is the essence of small business, right? Is providing a great experience and a great product, but you can't do it at the most expensive way. So what are the ways you can do it that really do kind of give you that leverage? I think you've done a great job through automations and whatnot.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been exciting, Andy. I'd love to hear a couple years from now what else you've found a way to automate, and you're like, I don't even show up to the office anymore, and everybody's getting worked on.
The dream.
Right.
We have a preceptor in the office right now, and I joke about it, but he's so impressive. I make the joke in the office that I'm pretty sure I could just like not show up tomorrow and like everything would go perfectly fine. I probably shouldn't do that, but I could, but
yeah.
Well, I guess the school requires me to be here, don't they? Yeah.
Well,
we'll have an associate hard at.
But besides that,
Art, right? Besides that.
Cool. All right. Well, on behalf of Dr. Andy Van Hoewyk, this is Dr. Josh Satterlee saying, go out there, build trust with your clients like Andy has, and you'll be amazed at the results. Andy, thanks so much for the time today.
Josh, thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Trust Driven Insights, brought to you by Trust Driven Care. Imagine a world where all your patient communication is in one place, seamless, effortless, and on autopilot. That's the power of Trust Driven Care. If you're ready to streamline your practice, check out trustdrivencare.com and see what's possible. Trust Driven Insights, real conversations, smarter care, stronger business.